You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. Bitcoin, Ether, Ripple, Litecoin, and more. Cryptocurrencies and other digital assets are taking the financial world by storm. This exploding market provides everything a savvy trader needs: volatility, volume, and liquidity. Provided you know how to find it. That's where we come in. Welcome to the Crypto Rundown. Each week, we'll break down the latest trading activity, trends, and developments on everything from coins to tokens, futures, and even OTC options. If it's moving the crypto markets, then you'll find it on the Crypto Rundown. This program is brought to you by Genesis Volatility, also known as GVol, home of institutional-grade crypto options analytics. Whether you're trading CeFi options or DeFi options, cryptocurrencies move. Use GVol Analytics to analyze implied volatility, model realized volatility, structure positions, and unlock alpha. For more information, visit gvol.io. That's GVOL.io. Now it's time to dive into the exploding world of cryptocurrencies and digital assets. It's time for the Crypto Rundown.
All right, everybody. That music means it is time once again for the Crypto Rundown, the show here on the old network, where we delve deep into what's going on the other side of the markets here. Going to talk about the crypto as opposed to the VIX and the SPY and the Teslas. Maybe some Bitcoin, maybe some ETH. You never know. It's going to perk up there and pop up on the old show. Of course, the volume, the volatility, the skew, OI, all that good stuff, trading activity, and a whole bunch more. My name is Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as, of course, from the ever-exciting Options Insider Radio Network. Reminding you, however you get this content, if you're on demand, of course, there are a ton of new people discovering this content all the time. These are crazy, tumultuous times we're all living in. So they need a guiding hand to help them learn about this content and to learn where to go in all these various app stores and, of course, podcast outlets. So if you like what you hear, leave a rating on your platform of choice. And if you want to, of course, join us live throughout the week, this show, everything else we do here, the pro Q&As, which I've just been informed, the once and future Dr. Vix will be joining us at 12 p.m. tomorrow. Sounds like he crossed his wires with Central and Eastern time there. So 12 p.m. for you folks there in the Secret Club, 12 p.m. Central. Get those questions in now. A lot of questions about what's going on out there in the vol space right now, as you might imagine. And, of course, however you listen live after the fact, keep sending in those questions. We do love to hear from all of you folks out there. And let's see who we're hearing from today. The founder and principal over there at Cenacle Capital Management, Mr. Bill ULIVIERI. Bill, welcome back to the Crypto Rundown, sir.
Hello, do you hear me?
I hear you loud and clear.
Yay.
You're telling me a sob story about all your problems, but you sound fine to me. So I think you're
awesome.
I think you was looking for a little bit of sympathy. I think that's what it was.
It's just so frustrating. I do these tests and I don't hear myself come back, and I don't know. I'm too OG for this podcast stuff that you're 20 years ahead of me. And
says a man who's doing that. You're doing a podcast, aren't you?
Yeah, but yes, I am, and it's fun and it's exciting, and I'm learning, but I still get frustrated by technology not going my way.
Well, I think a lot of people are probably frustrated by the markets as well today. So let's get to it with the Bitcoin breakdown.
It's time to explore the latest trending activity, trends, and developments across the world's leading crypto market. It's time for the Bitcoin Breakdown.
All right, listeners, let's get to it. Let's break down the action in the world's leading crypto asset, which is, of course, Bitcoin. And Mr. Bill, a little bit of the old red on the old screen. In fact, since the last time you joined us, I do believe you joined us on our first show of the new year. Since then, we've seen pretty much nothing but red on the Bitcoin screen. Lots of sell-offs going on out there. Before I break down the numbers for us, catch us up. What are your thoughts? Obviously, you've been around the options and the market making and the volatility space for a while, so you've seen a lot of vol and sell-offs in the broad market and a lot of spikes in vol. In fact, in your day job, you're not managing crypto, you're also managing a traditional equity and equity option portfolio. So if you have any thoughts on the overall sell-off we're seeing in the broad market, and now maybe a little bit of a rebound, we're only off about half as bad as we were to start the day. So if you have any thoughts on that, have at it. Then, of course, the bloodletting that's going on out there in the crypto space, or if you have thoughts on the madness there, have at it.
Yes, it's a sea of red, a sea of red. Well, I tell you, Mark, looking at the traditional market, we definitely rallied to the high end of our 10-week moving average, which I think, is one of my favorite indicators, this kind of bell curve, long gamma type of personality and trading mentality. But the Russell 2000 has pretty much been in a very sideways pattern, right? And we kind of broke through that this week. And so what we saw was, I think, is, valuations really go, market valuations very high. The Wilshire 5000 to GDP very high, but it's been that way for a long time. Don't get me wrong. It's been that way for over a year. When we pulled into this, even pre-COVID, we had some extraordinary liquidity by the Federal Reserve putting in. But the thing that I think was happening is that, Bitcoin didn't, barely made a new high. When we went into that time period, everybody's talking about the Catherine Wood ARK Innovation Fund that is down 60% from the highs put in last spring. So in my perspective, we're hearing about the sell-off now, but the truth is I think the market began to decline last March and April. That's kind of when the highs put in. Those are when the highs went in for my clients. And it's the strangest thing. Like, I couldn't figure out. Market's making new highs. And our accounts were not doing that. Well, then what we really was able to determine was that there was an underlying weakness in the market. Maybe the QQQ and maybe the Dow 30 made new highs, and maybe the S&P 500 made new highs. But the dividend-paying S&P, that symbol SDY, didn't make a new high. I'm not quite sure if RSP, the equal-weighted ETF, made a new high. Russell 2000 was called a classic bear trap signal, where it kind of broke above. Everybody covered their shorts and got long, and then we just smoked through the bottom side. So my son bought me a straight razor for Christmas as a gift. And I'm telling you, there's more red on my screen than was on my throat the day after Christmas.
Yeah, it's an intriguing time. So has any of this sell-off in the broad market, again, we'll get to the crypto in a second, listeners. I'm just curious, has this caused you to rethink any of your asset allocation out there right now? I know you're a bit of a perma bull. Are you dialing that back at all, or you're still kind of full steam ahead?
No, if God's honest truth is, I try to hold on to. You see, I've never lost the client because I was in the market. Any people that left and wanted to manage assets by themselves is because I was too conservative. And so I did hold on to quite a bit of cash coming into the fall for the new clients that were coming on in the fall, right? So I allocated maybe less than 50% of those assets, maybe 25 in one or two accounts. And so I try to hold on to as much cash as possible because I kind of felt like I saw this spinning over. Like, things just seem to be rolling over from my perspective. But I'll be honest with you, I bought today. I bought broad-based ETFs. I bought some Qs, some SPY. I bought GBTC. I bought IEI. So I did allocate for those clients because I figure, hey, we've had a nice decline, over the last 90 days plus. And it's time to deploy. So I'm still a little bit too soon to tell, but truthfully, for the S&P 500, my targets for support, below 4,350, 4,300 into the 42 handle, I kind of met all my objectives, to be honest with you. So I'm kind of, my clients only call me near the bottom. It's the strangest thing. So I've had 4 phone calls in the last week. So I think we're closer to a bottom than we are a top, because nobody calls me on the highs. They call me on the lows.
The client indicator.
Yes.
Always reliable out there. Well, Bill, the last time you were on with us was January 3rd. Bitcoin hovering back then at about 46,000. It is a wee bit lower than that right now. Actually, it has rallied a bit today, so it's back to only about $10,000 lower than it was on your last appearance. We're a little bit north of 36,000, about 36,200 right now. But obviously, Bill, the predominant trend since your last appearance across the broad space. In fact, we're seeing, ETH, we'll get to ETH obviously a little bit more later, but that's down around 50% from its all-time highs. Bitcoin is around similar levels, at least it was earlier this morning. So we've seen just a lot of red on the screen since the last time you joined us. What are your thoughts on this? Some are calling it crypto crash, crypto sell-off. Call it what you will, all this red in the crypto space.
Sure. Well, how am I going to call it? So I'm looking at my screen now, and just in the last 20 days or so since the beginning of the year, Loop Ring down 53%, Curve DAO, the decentralized autonomous token, down 42.5%, Algorand down 38.79%, Beam down 37%, Sushi Swap down 36%. I mean, we have so much bloodletting, like you said, and I only have one. I have one cryptocurrency up, since the beginning of the year. So what do I see? I think there's some fear, obviously, on the regulatory standpoint. We have, concerns about the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust becoming a full spot-based ETF. We have a stronger dollar. So if cryptocurrency and Bitcoin is considered an alternative asset class as a currency, the strong dollar that we've seen would also potentially put a dent in the Bitcoin price. So, it's hard to say. Like, I don't care that much about the why things happen, Mark. That's the big trap I think most investors fall into. Why is the market going down? Why is the market going up? Why is this happening? And I don't really care that much about the why. I just care about where it's at, who's buying, who's selling. And, I kind of, I was promoting the stock to flow ratio that put Bitcoin at about $130,000 by the end of the year. We didn't hit those targets. Michael Saylor all over Twitter just pumping Bitcoin, and he's made some really good engineering and technical cases, proof of case for Bitcoin. So in my perspective, I think this is the weak hands are getting out. Ethereum, we're getting dwindling value, like tokens valued locked up in DeFi loans. So this pullback in Ethereum, it's almost like, back on I'm sorry for going on a rant here, but back on the trading floor, when we were traders, we would it's called flushing the stops out. This happened over at the board of trade. Whereas if you knew there was a lot of stop loss orders to buy or sell, the traders would try to get one tick at that stop order, back in the 90s and 80s. And then all of a sudden the brokers would just come flushing in with orders, and we would, either hop on the train or we would fade those buy orders. So I think what's happening here is that we've had a really, really good pullback in Ethereum. There's so many DeFi loans wrapped up in this. I wouldn't be surprised if some of this decline that we've seen, both in equity and in cryptocurrency space, was tied to a liquidating, like a margin call on loans in Ethereum and Bitcoin. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but that's kind of what I see.
Yeah, we're starting to threaten levels in ETH that I remember. It doesn't seem like it was that long ago when we hit, and again, we're getting ahead of ourselves with the ETH again, but it doesn't seem like that was that long ago that we hit the 1,700 all-time high in ETH. And that seems like a lot of new money dove in. A lot of people were talking about it on the show, and here we are back on Showtime. Not that far from that earlier today. But let's get out into the big dog here. Listen, we have a lot of more data has been coming in as people have been crunching more data and more numbers on all the madness that unfolded in 2021. I think we'll get to that maybe next week on the show. Maybe we'll see. Maybe things are a little bit quieter next week. No guarantees. But of course, we have seen a bit of a downside and a bit of an interesting range this week as well. Over a 10,000 point range in Bitcoin. It hit its high of about almost 43,500 last Thursday. Of course, on our last show, we were at about almost a 41,500 on the show. And coming into today's show, we were at about a 36,254 when we kicked off the show. So we're down about 5,200 points from this time last week. Of course, intraday, we got even lower. We got down to a little bit shy of the 33,000 level, about 32,983 earlier this morning. So a lot of red on the screen today, even though it does seem like we're erasing some of that here, listeners, right now. Again, in the broad equity markets as well, they have bounced. At one point, NASDAQ was off over 4% today. It looks like it's around somewhere in the neighborhood of 2% right now. So it does seem like there is a little bit of the old BTFD going on. Is that catching a falling knife, or is that the right play? Maybe we'll find out a little bit later here in the show as we keep on rolling. Looking at the vol right now, listeners, as you might imagine, vol is up in the crypto space, though perhaps not quite as high as you might have assumed coming into the start of the show here. We had Bitcoin last week, Bitcoin vol. Remember, all this data coming at you courtesy of our friends over there at Genesis Volatility, GVOL, GVOL. Untitled.io is the place to go to kick the tires and light the fires. Don't trust me? Hey, go check it out for yourselves. It's all this data you pretty much can't find anywhere else, all in one place. On our last show, we were at about a 69 vol, so the vol had come in quite a bit. Coming into the start of the show today, up, but again, we're not talking triple digits. We're at about a 78 right before the start of the show. And how high did it get today? It got down to about 84% during the depth of the sell-off. So again, Bitcoin vol takes a little bit more to get it going these days. So it can get going every once in a while. There's a great ad I just saw recently of someone saying, I'm a millionaire. Oh, wait, I'm not. And then I'm a millionaire and he quits his job. Oh, wait, I'm not. And they said, crypto trading is hard. I think it was an ad for a tax prep thing, but it was hilarious. And it kind of goes back to this perception everyone has that Bitcoin in particular is super volatile. Right now, not so much. BitVol, which is, of course, our buddy Simon Ho's kind of 30-day VIX approximation for Bitcoin. Last show was about a 74, 71. Today, a little bit higher, 83, about 83 and a half. So again, it's getting frothy, but it's it's not even in the nat gas what we saw in those levels over triple digits not too long ago. The 30-20 skew, I've been saying for a while, it's going to take a protracted sell-off to really get those puts to start kicking into high gear, get that negative skew to really start kicking in. That's pretty much what we've been seeing, listeners. On our last show, we were about a 4.3, a negative 4.3. Right now, coming into this show, we were at a negative 7.7, so obviously getting more negative, and it hit a low of negative 13. So at the dark moment when we broke through the 33,000 level in Bitcoin, the puts were flying fast and furious there, listeners. Simon's bit skew, again, it's kind of a bit of a lagging indicator. Actually, coming in a little bit, it was 94.1 on our last show, 92.5 this show. Again, also the fact that we're blowing through strikes to the downside probably has something to do with that there as well. Open interest. Again, we're finally seeing the puts closing the gap between calls and puts out there. We're seeing puts now a little bit less than 2-1. They were a distant second place from the calls. But coming into today's show, the calls are at about 116,000 open on Deribit. It's up about a little over 24,000 from this time last show. And the puts are at 65,000. So again, they are now less than 2-1. On the call to put front out there. That's up about 17, almost 18,000 on the put side. So about 65,000 puts and about 116,000 calls. So interesting stuff afoot. Where is the most paper right now? Where are you folks lining up your size positions? It's actually very near dated stuff. It's all January, 55,000 open options positions on Deribit in January. Now it's up about 13,300 from this time last week. March number 2, the quarterlies are always pretty dominant, but Jan sneaking in there. I guess not surprising. We have seen some aggressive movements out there. So people like to be a little bit narrow dated to capture those. March, 45,000 open in March right now. It's up about 10,000 from this time last week. And February sneaking into the top 3 now at about 23,500. In terms of where you folks are positioning from a strike perspective, we have seen some interesting adjustments out there, as you might expect, given the fact that we have sold off pretty hard across the board in most of the major crypto assets. It's a tie for number 1 right now between the 50,000 strike and the 30,000 strike, both at about 11,000. The 30,000 strike is a newcomer to our top 5, so we don't have the data for it from last week. The 50K strike up about 1,900 contracts. So there was new positioning on the 50,000 strike this week, but the 30K strike, remember, just at the end of last year, listeners, it was all about the par strike and all these crazy strikes to the upside. And I said, once all that rolls off the board, which roughly half of the OI did at the end of December, were we going to see some new, perhaps more relevant strikes fighting their way into the top 10? And that's what we're seeing. The 30,000 strike now tied for number 1. An in-the-money strike. We don't see that too often. Number 3, these actually, I guess you can call it number 2 if there's a tie for number 1. But we'll leave it at number 3. 70K strike. That's got about 10,000 contracts open. That's up about 1,000. Number 4 is the par strike. It's still there. It's just a number 4 now, listeners. It's at about 8,800 contracts open. It's up a couple of hundred. Not a big change from this time last week. And number 5 is the 40,000 strike with 8,000 contracts open. That's down about 800. So a lot of evolution on the 50K and the 30K strike. The rest of them kind of mostly hanging out. In terms of volume, the big days we saw over the course of the past week were the 21st with about 45,000 contracts trading on Deribit, followed by the 22nd with about 27,500. Though if today continues the pace, we may be seeing some interesting volume going up today as well. Bill, any of that I broke down just now, the skew action, the OI changes, the fact that now December has gone the way of the dodo, took about half of the OI with it. Now we're seeing some more relevant strikes percolating into the top 5. Any of that come across your radar, sir?
Yeah, for sure. It's really interesting, Mark, because we did see a ton of open interest come off the S&P 500 as well as the Bitcoin in the cryptocurrency space. I think what we're seeing is that when we have open interest decline and volume kind of soft or building, it just is an interesting phenomenon to see how easy maybe the market is to get pushed around. And even though we've had this complete shellacking, in the QQQs and the NASDAQ, S&P 500, Russell 2000 recently, we have to remember that with Bitcoin, it's still up 115% annualized for the last 3 years, up 107% annualized over the last 5 years. Over the last 10 years, up 137% annualized. Those are the returns. Same with Ethereum. Ethereum is, north of 170% annualized returns. So on one side, we need volatility. We love this. We live for this. We agonize over the slow and steady of the market going up. And so I want to use this as an opportunity to buy. And I like the fact that, honestly, the open interest kind of evaporated at the end of the year. We saw that across all asset classes. And now I think people are going to start making bets on the market, and we're probably going to end up placing bets the wrong direction. I'm just not that convinced this is the end and the collapse of Western civilization is the way compared to how it feels right now.
A few people in our chat, Mr. Bill, are speculating maybe this is a new crypto winter. What do you think of that?
I don't think so. I mean, if you look at a point and figure chart of Bitcoin, I'll definitely say that, once we made our high, let me put it up right here, put it up right now. Once we made our highs, we had this big rally in Bitcoin. And the chart, I swear, looks almost exactly like the Russell 2000, where we had this huge launch at the end of beginning of 2021. And it's been trading kind of sideways. Now, the Russell 2000 broke through that bottom support at 210, but Bitcoin hasn't. Bitcoin has to trade 29,022. So let's just call it an even 29,000 in order to break through and say, from a point and figure standpoint, that we have this classic bear trap where the market, so we market rallied into April of 2021 at around 63,352. We sold off into June and July. Market rallied again and broke out to 66,500. So we broke and made a new high. Typical point and figure breakout over the sideways pattern. It should indicate a super long position. And what happened? A month later, we turned around and broke through and just destroyed and went through these support areas. So it's interesting that I see a divergence between the Russell 2000 and the tech stocks versus Bitcoin. And Bitcoin hasn't made and hasn't broken through that low at the 30,473. So I think that we had a tremendous rally from COVID lows of Bitcoin, which was 4,122, rallied to 63,000. Okay, did you hear that? We rallied from 4,100 to 63,000.
It sounds insane when you say it out loud like that, doesn't it?
Right. So come on, let's give this decentralized digital gold, this decentralized new currency, this new technology of the next 100 years. Can we just give it a little bit of room to figure itself out? I mean, come on, 4,000 to 66,000 in like a year and a half. I mean, come on. So let's give it a little bit more time. All right. But I'm not so sure the party is over with Bitcoin. I think right now we're just kind of trading sideways, and I'm interested in seeing the divergence.
There you go. Mr. Bill has called it no to crypto winter. You agree, disagree? Hit us up. Some of you already chiming in your thoughts in the chat. Listen after the fact. Hit us up. Let us know your thoughts out here and what you're seeing in all this madness. Let's see what we're seeing out here on the CME front. It's been a decently active time, all things considered, out there. Bitcoin options on Friday. And the 133, it doesn't sound like a lot, but that's actually a fair amount for the 5X options out there. The OI also ticking up about 400 contracts to around 1750, which again, doesn't sound like a lot, but for kind of a sleepy contract, that's actually a fair amount. The futures were actually kind of sleepy on Friday. Only 14,500 contracts going up. We've seen them do many multiples of that on busy days in the past. So not a lot of action there. The OI up about 1,000 to about 12,000 contracts out there. So not a ton on the futures front. Seemed like most of the action was on the options and on the micros. Bit of a far cry from the launch of BITO, and everyone thought, oh my God, we're going to be at position limits on the futures so quickly. And not a lot of paper going up, at least on Friday. Micro Bitcoin futures, a little bit of a different story. And again, that's where I know a lot of you like to play out there if you're going to trade on CME. The micro Bitcoin futures, 32, almost 33,000 going up on Friday. And the OI ticking up about 4,000 contracts to about 30,800 or so out there. So again, for the small stuff, That's where you folks like to trade. And speaking of small stuff, a lot of the altcoin got a lot smaller. So let's go check it out in the altcoin universe.
It's time to move beyond Bitcoin and find out what's moving the rest of the crypto marketplace. It's time to boldly venture into the altcoin universe.
All right, listeners, let's get to it. The altcoin universe, that top 10 is going to look a fair amount lighter this week, I do believe, than we have seen it in quite some time. Number 10, Doge, still hanging out there in the top 10 right now, listeners, at about 17.8 billion worth of market cap. Number 9 is good old Luna at about 26 billion, almost exactly. Number 8, Solana. Man, they have come for Solana, listeners. Is that an 88 and about 3/4 when we ran these numbers earlier today? That's a little bit shy of 28, about 27.9 billion. Now, again, if you look at it, it was what, $4 last year or so, earlier this year. That from that level, it's up enormously, but still, it was over 200 not too long ago. So they have come for Solana pretty aggressively. XRP also feeling the heat as well at about a 59 when we kicked off the show, 59.25. That's at about 28.3 billion. Good for number 7 on the top 10 this week. Number 6, Cardano, another one that they've come for, holding out all right, but they've come for it. It's a little bit north of $1 at about 35.5 billion. Number 5, good old USD coin, 48 billion, pretty much exactly. Number 4, Binance coin, still hanging out there at about 59, almost 60 billion. Number 3 is Tether, 78.3 billion. Number 2 is ETH, and man, ETH has come in at about we'll get to the levels in a second when we break down ETH some more. But market cap right now, 281 and about $500 million, and Bitcoin, listeners, 679 billion worth of market cap out there right now. We ran it when the numbers were a wee bit higher than they were earlier this morning. If we ran it earlier this morning, that would have looked even more dim. So you're talking pretty much close to half of where it was at the highs there when we were plus 1T market cap levels. And ETH seeing similar levels, it's off pretty much 50% from its all-time highs, which again was around 4,500 or so, a little bit north of that. Coming into today's show, we were at about a 23.53 listener. So again, you're pretty much 50% off the top there from ETH. On the course of the last week, we had quite the range. We got the low this morning of 2160. So threatening the 2000 level, didn't quite get there, but got pretty darn close. And the high for this week was 3271 back from last Thursday. So we're down almost 700, about 675 points from this time last week when we kicked off the show. And of course, earlier today, the numbers were even more apocalyptic looking out there. Mr. Bill, I know you like to pay attention to ETH, and it's one of the ones you watch a lot out there. ETH has been pretty aggressively clipped since the last time we chatted, Mr. Bill, off pretty much 50% from its highs. What's your thoughts on the number 2, now a much smaller number 2, sir?
Well, again, Ethereum certainly has first mover adoption. Its chart, in my opinion, looks a lot like Bitcoin, where we had a rally from, the COVID low at $103 a token. So it went from 103 to 4,631 in the fall of 2021, from 100 to 4631. So the chart looks the same. We had a rally in the summer, May and June of 2021, sold off, rallied, made a new high. I think people were trading against that short area up at the 4,200 area. Probably everybody covered their shorts. Longs got in, and what happened? They turn around, we break 3,800, and then it just gets smoked. But the truth is, we're now at the bottom of its 10-week moving average at 2339. So in terms of so if you and I, Mark, were sitting next to each other in the trading pit, and we were both trading long gamma, and it was IBM or Eastman Kodak or AOL, and Qualcomm, any company, we'd be saying, hey, let's sell near the high end of the range and let's buy our stock back at the bottom end of the range. That's what we did all day long, right? We bought and sold our long gamma, and the money that we made helped offset the price of the erosion of our options called theta. So from my perspective, I have Ethereum near like a 4,860 to 5,300 is the high end of the range. The midpoint or fair value is 3,810. And the bottom end of the 10-week moving average is 2339. And we're, down in that area already. So for me, if I was quote unquote a long gamma trader, I'd be looking to buy here and maybe set stops at 1745, which is like this triple bottom area in point and figure charting. So I don't think we're going to get there, but we may. So again, I'm bullish on Ethereum, but for a trade, maybe buy it here and look to, sell it in the mid 3,000s. That's my trading perspective.
Yeah, like I say, I don't hate these levels here either. We're a little bit north of the levels where, like I said, this really seemed like ETH started capturing a lot of the more mainstream imagination when it hit that. It's been hitting new highs for a long time, but for some reason, it seemed like 1,700 was a catalyst for a lot of people. I know when we talked about it on the show. It's a level I know a lot of people were interested in. We're not that far away from it again right now, listeners. So intriguing times afoot out there. ETH vol a little bit frothier than it was this time last week. On our last show, it was at about an 82%. Now coming into today, it was at a 94% when we kicked off the show. ETH can get frothy, listeners. ETH got into the triple digits, 107 earlier today, listeners. So intriguing stuff afoot. Skew-wise, same deal as Bitcoin. It was negative on our last show, negative 6.7. Got even more negative today, got down to negative 10. And for a brief period, got down to a negative 17 at the height of the sell-off when puts were flying fast and furious down there. Again, it has settled back a little bit now, down to about a negative 10. Open interest-wise, we are seeing the numbers tick up, even though the puts have not gotten into the roughly 2-to-1 range that they are with Bitcoin yet, which is interesting given the aggressive nature of the Bitcoin sell-off. The calls are at about 1.35 million. It's up about 200,000 from this time last week, and the puts are at about 505,000. So not quite 2-to-1 there, listeners. They're up about 145,000. So more OI gains on the call front this past week than on the puts. In terms of action, the busiest days, we had a couple of busy days last week. Last Friday and last Saturday were the two busy days. Saturday had 378,000 contracts going up, and Friday was 391,000. So pretty active days out there. Again, I'm trying to transition the crypto space away from talking about things in notional volume numbers. So hopefully if we start talking contracts out there, the crypto space will follow suit, listeners. In terms of action, where you folks are lining up from an expiration perspective, it's still the quarterlies leading the dance in ETH, as it usually is. 548,000 contracts open in March on Deribit right now. It's up about 69,000 contracts. Jan, 423,000 for number 2. That's up 142,000. And June, number 3, 346,000 contracts. That's up 81,000 from this time last week. And in terms of the positions, where are you folks lining up from a strike perspective? Where are the size positions in ETH options right now? Let's go from the bottom just for fun. Number 5 is the 4,000 strike, which has 100,000 contracts open. So that's nothing to sneeze at. And that's a newcomer to our top 5. So some new strikes popping in there. Number 4 is the 10K strike with 106,000 contracts open there. That's actually up 11,000 from this time last week. So new positioning on these far out of the money strikes. Number 3, the 15,000 strike with 106,000 contracts open. So actually a bit of a tie for the number 4 spot /3 spot there. That's down 1,000 from this time last week. Number 2, we have the 6,000 strike that has 107,000 contracts open. That's up 15,000 from this time last week. And number 1, unlike Bitcoin, which has migrated to some more, shall we say, realistic strikes, the number 1 strike still by size out there in ETH this week is the 20,000 strike with 111,000 contracts open. That's up 20,000 from this time last week. So obviously there could be some verticals and ratios going on up there, but we didn't see the 10,000 strike or the 15,000 strike gain anywhere near the amount of volume that the 20K strike did. So a lot of new positioning on the 20,000 level in ETH, which is a little bit surprising. Bill, does that surprise you that folks are flocking into the 20K strike, given that we're at about a 2,300 in ETH right now, sir?
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is. Let's go. Let's do this. Let's do this, Mark. Let's make our Hail Mary pass. Now, 20,000 is a little bit rich, I'll say that. But in this world of cryptocurrency, wow, like anything is possible. I do like Ethereum, but I will say this. It seems to me as though there's a lot of people trying to target and shoot and assassinate Ethereum. We have these other projects, Solana, Algorand, Beam, all these other smart contract platforms that are looking to displace this time value locked or total value locked in Ethereum. And so I'm just as bullish as I am on all crypto, as bullish as I am on Ethereum. There certainly seems to be more competitors coming after Ethereum than like Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency. And it has to do with the high gas fees. If you're going to mint a non-fungible token, you typically pay in Ethereum. And the gas fees almost make it prohibitive for you to do that sometimes. So I don't know. I mean, again, I love Ethereum. I love everything about Ethereum, Ethereum Classic. Every project to me is a little bit interesting, even Doge. But I would say if there's anybody coming after the guns in the DeFi space, they're coming after Ethereum. So that's my only caution.
That does seem to be consensus. You're right. A lot of people are gunning for that number 2 spot overall in the crypto market. And ETH holds it, but it is under assault by a large amount of threats out there. Let's see what kind of numbers we're seeing over there on CME land. 9,000 futures going up on the big ETH contract on Friday. That's a decent amount. The OI's pretty much unched at around 4,100. It was that level last week as well. The micro ETH futures have been more of a success story over there. 32,600 going up on Friday. The OI is up another 5,200 to 30,700. So you folks clearly like yourselves a little bit of ETH and the micro ETH contracts in particular. Let's see if you like any of the other altcoin out there, even though some of these numbers may be a little painful to hear, listeners. XRP on our show last week, 72.5 cents today, 59.2 cents. So taking a nice 13.2 cent drubbing over the course of the past week. Doge coming off another almost full cent from this time last week. Litecoin was 125.81 on our last show, 107.33 today, down about 18.5 handles from this time last week. Cardano only off 6 cents. It was 112 last week, 106 this week. So caught a little bit of a breather there in Cardano. Polkadot 23.41 this time last week, 17.5 this week. So they're coming for that one, down nearly 6 handles. And I said Solana, just, man, they are coming for Solana. It was 133, almost 134 on our last show, 88.95 when we kicked off the show today. Down 44, almost 45 handles from where it was this time last week. And Shiba just continuing to erode out there, even though a lot of our chat, I know, wants to get those Shiba Lambos going. Speaking of our chat and your questions, let's get to some of those, a little bit of your crypto questions.
You've got questions about crypto. Who doesn't? It's time to find out the answers to your crypto questions.
All right, everyone. Mr. Bill, I was only kind of joking earlier today on our show earlier this morning when I said, where's the BTFD crowd? Where it seems like they're out, Mr. Bill, because NASDAQ has gone from being down over 4% today to being effectively unched right now. S&P only off 0.33%, Dow off about 0.5%, sir. So folks are buying that dip in the equities. They're doing so in the crypto right now, too. But does that surprise you, sir, the aggressive nature of the recovery here?
I'm going to say no, it doesn't surprise me, and I'll tell you why. Usually these sell-offs begin way sooner than most people are watching, and it's over when everybody's freaking out. And like I may have said in the beginning of the show, we saw the technology make a high in March, April, May of 2021. And little by little, we've been chipping away, but nobody said anything. Nobody was talking about it. Maybe a little bit of the backdrop on the Qs or again, Catherine Wood, the ARK Innovation Funds. But it wasn't until like the last 10 days, everybody is, and actually coming into the new year, there's a little bit of concern in coming into 2022. And we saw this liquidation. Oh my goodness. I mean, again, you and I are contrarian trader. When you're long gamma trader in the option world, you're always fading everything that you hear. If it's too good to be true, you're selling with both hands. If it's horrible news, blood in the streets, you can't buy fast enough. And so that is, for better, for worse, that's my temperament. So I have been trying to hold on and be a little bit careful about what I was buying. But I tell you, I said this morning, I bought this morning some ETFs for clients that were too cash heavy. And I'm not that surprised, because when we were sitting in the trading pit, you'd always hear somebody on the far side of the pit shout at the top of their lungs, we could be up on the day or we could be down on the day, always fading the move, right? And so I'm not that surprised. Now, what's going to happen over the next week, 3 weeks, a few months? I have some interesting statistics, but they're really too long to go through on what's left of the show. But I'm kind of positive. I think we put in a low this week. We're going to trade sideways and then beginning inching higher into the midterms. But that's just me.
Mr. Bill talking some positivity out there. Let's see if our audience is sharing that positivity. We posted a flash poll right before the show, Mr. Bill. We said, has the sell-off in Bitcoin and ETH and other leading crypto assets changed your outlook on the crypto market for 2022? Yes, no, or I don't trade crypto. Mr. Bill, if you have a vote, have at it. It sounds like your answer is no. But B, more importantly, what do you think our audience is voting for, sir?
I think our audience is going to be pro crypto. So I think they're going to be buying with both hands.
So I guess that would be a no, and that is what is winning. You're right. 54.5% right now say it has not changed their outlook on crypto. 27.3% saying yes, and 18.2% saying you're not trading the crypto right now. Let's go out to the live chat. Mr. Luigi has a question for you, Mr. Bill. He wants to know, what do you think in particular, what do you consider to be stable coins? And he says not Shiba, so no Shiba for stable coins, Mr. Bill. But how do you define a stable coin, sir?
How do I define a stable coin? I define a stable coin much like a money market fund, where the price is set and linked to a known value of like 1.00, or it could be it's a temporary respite. It's a place to go to in between transactions and trading of crypto. So if you have risk on, you are long Ethereum, you're long Bitcoin, you're long Solana and Cardano. When you want to take risk off, where do you go? What do you do? Well, you sell that asset and it goes into Tether or USD coin, the stable coin. So these stable coins, to me, I treat them like a money market fund, where you have to, the people who are responsible for holding those assets need to go out and get yield and somehow manage that treasury, that cash treasury. Now, it's not to say that we haven't passed laws that don't require, that it's not illegal now to break a buck. Remember that term? We broke a buck. That was in the money market world that blew up back in 07, 08, 09. We had the reserve fund, which broke the buck, right? The perception of a floor, and now that's not there anymore. So that's my description of a stable coin. It's that place where you go where risk is off, and it's a safe place to go. Now, what is Tether holding? What is USDC holding? Well, that's for a whole nother episode. But I've listened to some podcasts. I've done a little bit of reading, and there's probably more backing in the Tether space and USDC than there is in most banks in terms of reserves. So if you're looking to find collateral, you're probably going to find it in some of these stable coins, and I feel good about that.
All right, let's see if you feel good about this. Mr. Unlimited, he's sharing with us a meme he's seen. He says, a lot of people are sharing it with him. He says, new cryptocurrencies are getting out of control because they have one node, unlimited supply cap, 2 trillion in circulation, 1% of the holders own 30%. Yeah. Controlled by a single entity, and 25% were minted in the last 6 months. So, Mr. Bill, what say you to this latest crypto meme, sir?
That is the US dollar, baby. Right? That is USD.
No, there's something to be said for that. 1% of the holders do own a lot of the dollars in circulation out there right now. But you're right. There is a little bit of analogy to be made there between the good old USD and this meme definition of current crypto. Remember, that's a flash poll, listeners, so get in there pretty soon. It'll be going the way of the dodo soon. What are your thoughts here? Has this sell-off? Are you thinking it's a crypto winter? Are you thinking this is just a BTFD, just go buy some? Or is something else? Hit us up. Let us know. We love to hear from you folks out there. All right, listeners, that's going to do it for this episode of the Crypto Rundown. Remind you, everyone in the Secret Club there, we'll be coming back at you tomorrow at noon with the once and future Dr. Vix, tomorrow, noon Central, of course. So get those questions in. Who doesn't have a question about vol on a day like today, where we are freaking threatening to be unched on NASDAQ, and then this is crazy town, listeners. Threatening our other poll we have going this week. Will we hit 40 or 30 in VIX first this week? A lot of you were leaning 40. Maybe that worm is turning now that we're threatening the 30 handle. So get out there, add options, play along in our polls if you haven't done so already. And Mr. Bill, if they want to get a hold of you, ask you some questions about stablecoin or vol or anything else, or pick your brain on these crazy markets, where should they go? What should they do?
They can text the word blockchain to 22828. That's the word blockchain to 22828, and get started by getting our newsletter, which we publish every 2 weeks or once a month, depending on how exciting things are. Or they can contact our company at calling 847-686-4800. And we have an 8-page report that just went out this morning, as a matter of fact. So it might be kind of fun for you guys to see what's going on when I'm looking at Bitcoin, Ethereum, other cryptocurrencies. Coinbase, one of my favorite companies of all time, even though it's absolutely took it on the chin in the last few weeks. And so that would be, I'd love to have people coming on board and reading the newsletter and giving us some feedback.
Yeah, coin looking rough over the last month. 280 a month at the end of the year, December, and now 189 coming into today. Let's see how they fared today. They're bouncing a little bit today. They got down to 164, now 189. So quite the rebound they've had just today out here. All the vol listeners, a lot to unpack. Hit up Mr. Bill. You know where to find him. You can also give him a follow on the old Twitters out there, listeners. He is at Cenacle, Cenacle Capital. All one word. Of course, you know where to go to kick the tires and light the fires on all these analytics and metrics and vol stats and size positions and everything else. There's a whole bunch more there. We're just scratching the surface. It is only a pretty much 1 hour show, roughly, listeners. So we don't have time to get into all of it. If you want to see what they have to offer on all different fronts, it goes Bitcoin, ETH, Deribit, most of the other leading venues. Even gets beyond some other products. You can do historical scans, vol, all kind of crazy things, skew charts, you name it. Unusual activity. It's all there and a whole bunch more. Genesis Volatility, gvol.io, gvol.io is the place to go to kick the tires and light the fires. We got to get on out of here, listeners. We're back again tomorrow, noon central. Who knows how much vol we're going to have to unpack on that pro Q&A tomorrow. Should be fun. Wednesday, of course, your double dose of education, options bootcamp, options playbook radio. Thursday, back for another double dose, TWIFO and the option block. Friday, vol views, and for everybody in the secret club, options oddities. Then we're back again next Monday to break down another week of madness in the crypto markets with another crypto rundown. We'll see you then.
This program is brought to you by Genesis Volatility, also known as GVol, home of institutional-grade crypto options analytics. Whether you're trading CeFi options or DeFi options, cryptocurrencies move. Use GVol Analytics to analyze implied volatility, model realized volatility, structure positions, and unlock alpha. For more information, visit gvol.io. That's gvol.io. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.